The following video is brought to you by our sponsor, Aura. Stay tuned to find out how you can try it for free.
A British pub is more of a familial kind of camaraderie-driven place. Cash is Cash decided to come down on me and revoke the usage of my driveway.
I know how vindictive that park service can be and just how nasty they can be.
The information was squashed, covered up, whatever.
Every one of these superintendents, chief rangers, assistant superintendents, all the headquarters bunch, been driving up down that road for years. They're using that road.
My name is Brian Papworth. I own the Fox and Parrot Tavern on Glades in Gatlinburg, and I've been the owner since 1997. Bought the piece of property in '95, was told that I had an undeeded right-of-way up the driveway, 15 feet either side of center. I opened up Papworth Photographic, which was a local fine art photographic gallery, had 7 different photographers from the area. My wife opened an urgent care clinic that was low cost for anybody that had or didn't have insurance, at $45 a visit. She ran that for 7.5 years. Had 3 little kids and wanted to start something in the building that would keep me at home and around the kids, and opened up a British pub. My grandfather on my father's side was from Newcastle, England. Our surname is Papworth, which is a town 12 miles west of Cambridge in England. And a pub, a British pub, is more of a familial kind of camaraderie-driven place, conversation-driven place for families and co-workers and all sorts of people to come and congregate and have conversation over food and drink. Started that in September of 1998. Had no problems with the driveway for the entire time. I knew that the driveway crossed a stretch of property that had been earmarked supposedly for the Foothills Parkway right-of-way, and had basically a handshake agreement with 2 previous superintendents that said as long as I didn't construct something permanent on the property, that I was free to use it any way I wanted. So we did that for 27, well, almost 30 years with the gallery included, until recently when we had some issues with flooding that the Park Service would not come and clear and be responsible for what they claimed jurisdiction of. The superintendent, Cash is Cash, decided to come down on me and revoke the usage of my driveway.
So yes, this family, due to a strip of land that crosses a driveway that existed before the formation of the national park, was forced to close their businesses they've ran for decades. The national park, which works for this family and whose pay is afforded to them by this family and all of us, just had their livelihood taken by the Park Service. So it's apparent we need to secure our physical property from outside threats. But in today's world, Threats to our identity and personal data are at an all-time high. Aura, an all-in-one protection from online threats. You probably have apps on your phone that ask to access your data. Sometimes these apps request this data to sell to data brokers in online auctions to the highest bidders. Banks, insurance companies, employers, predatory lenders, marketers, political campaigns, and scammers. Aura scans websites for your name, data, and even your social security number and submits removal requests on your behalf. And they alert you anytime they find anything suspicious. It's very likely that your name shows up on some of these sites right now. Aura will also supply you with a world-class VPN so you can work, search, and scroll with confidence. So you can hit the link at the top line of the description of this video, aura.com/smokies, and you're able to try this for free for 14 days, which will be more than enough time to let Aura show you how safe and protected you can be online, and more importantly, how exposed you have been without it. Giving Aura a free try is also an awesome and easy way to support our channel so we can keep bringing you content. Speaking of which, let's get back to it.
The issue, I think, became when the driveway flooded, and I asked for help, and the city of Gatlinburg sent a backhoe out and dug the creek out to let the water flow freely again. And the superintendent of the national park called a meeting, and when I asserted that the debris that was in the creek was due to his fire in 2016, that they hadn't cleared out the creek, he got all upset and said, my fire, and that's when it started changing the dynamic.
So here on the channel, we've also been a vocal critic about the handling of the fire and several other issues. Would you say that that part of the reason why you maybe were targeted had to do with maybe your criticism?
I was fairly vocal about it. A number of us are. The fire started near the trail head for the Chimneys trail inside the park. I don't know much about it. Obviously, I'm not a fire module guy. I've never worked in the national park, but I know how they've worked in the 30 years that I've lived here, and they would have never gotten permission to do a prescribed burn where it started. And I think they decided to let it burn to see if they couldn't burn back some of the underbrush, and it got out of control. It went from 1 acre to 10 acres to 500 to 17,500 in less than a week. There's a lot of the locals that have lived here for a long time that were here that night, were here that week. I think there was a lot more that went on. At the time, there were a lot of people that blamed the city of Gatlinburg for not alerting the people, but the city of Gatlinburg was going on the information that the park was giving them.
I can corroborate that. That's the same thing. When we were doing research on it, that's the same thing that I found out as well.
And I will stand up for the city commissioners that were in Gatlinburg at the time. Most are great friends of mine, and they really were caught almost as unaware as the rest of us were. In the end, my wife and I ended up working in the Rocky Top Sports World Evacuation Center. I cooked food for 2 weeks. And my wife ran their clinic because she was the only one certified that was inside the boundaries where they wouldn't let us leave. If we did leave, we couldn't come back.
So now take us to the point where, now the Park Service has come in and said, hey, you can no longer, this is ours, you can no longer use this for your businesses.
It started with the meeting with Cassius Cash and Clayton Jordan, who was his deputy superintendent at the time. And they basically wanted me to, like I said, indemnify them, the park, against any damages or injury using the driveway that they wouldn't let me maintain or repair, which didn't make any sense to me at all. And then they were going to revoke the use of it, so I filed a federal lawsuit against them a couple of years ago that prevented them from closing it off. We were supposed to have a court date of September 2024, and it all suddenly was dismissed and went away. So I don't still know what happened with that. But in the meantime, the superintendent at the time, Cassius Cash, has now left the Park Service and has gone on to the Yosemite Conservancy, which, as we understand it, is the equivalent of the Friends of the Smokies. But in the end, he was the one that made the decision, and now he's gone. So I'm trying to get it taken care of other ways.
So what's happened to the fox and the parrot in the urgent care now that the restriction, was placed on the driveway?
My wife, again, like I said, closed the urgent care in March of 2024 because of the inability to maintain and repair the driveway. I had the tavern running through the end of 2024. They came in on January 6th at about 7:45 in the morning with 20 personnel and numerous trucks and backhoes, and tore everything up, cut down my sign, dropped the sign to the ground that also had an American flag and a British flag, dropped that to the ground. The guy picked it up and wadded it up and threw it in the dumpster.
Oh, wow.
So that wasn't very cool. But at any rate, I have no access to the property right now. I can get down there through a back road that comes through the woods, but I'm not able. I've got thousands of dollars worth of inventory, food and beverage there that I'm unable to access currently.
And I know this is, obviously, it sounds as if you've lost a lot through this, right? And not to get into particulars of it, but what kind of situation has this put you in?
Financially, it's very, very difficult. Just in the last 3 months of the year, probably $40,000 or $50,000 worth of financial loss because of the inability for people to get in and out. The driveway was, every time it rains or floods, it creates a hydraulic and it tears away the substructure of the driveway. The driveway is getting narrower and narrower, and then they blocked it off completely. So currently, I would say even out of season, I'm probably losing $400 or $500 a day. On the weekends, probably $3,000 or $4,000.
Yeah, and we just had a big rain. I'm sure it's even worse now. Right?
I'm sure it is.
Yeah. So,
and we're coming up to our biggest time of the year, which is St. Patrick's Week.
Right.
And I'll lose, if I'm not able to get in and out of there or have customers get in and out of there, potentially $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. I'm the only place that's done a St. Patrick's event for the last 30 years in Sevier County.
So what steps have you taken since then? I know that we've discussed this previously, that you're still attempting to, you reached out to the Department of the Interior, correct?
Yeah, we started by calling, first of all, the Mountain Press newspaper, the local newspaper, covered it in August of 2023. Then they did another front page story this past December of 2024.
And that's where we found it.
That's where you guys heard about it. We've reached out to all the Knoxville TV stations, all the radio stations. I've sent emails to the Trump transition team at the time, Diana Hirschbarger, one of the local representatives, Marsha Blackburn, one of our senators, Jesse Seal, who is a state senator out of Hawkins County. I wrote a letter to the Department of the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum 3 nights ago. He just got confirmed a week or so ago. So I'm waiting to hear back from that. Other than that,
so you've taken steps to,
I've tried to let everybody know about this. Yeah.
My name's Jerry Grubb, and I'm a retired park ranger and been retired now for probably 25 years. I'm an old guy, so I can speak freely now.
As somebody that's worked for the Park Service for many, many years, what is your take on Brian's situation with this driveway and the National Park Service?
Well, I go back to my working days in the park, and as far as the Park Service being right, they are right. That is their land, but the negligence by the Park Service to allow it to come to this point is pretty overwhelming. I work the boundaries as part of my job with the park. I'm real familiar with these park boundaries. Of course, I forgot a lot about a lot of stuff, and until this came up with Brian, I really don't really give it any thought.
You did a lot of things as a park ranger, right?
Right.
One of those things was you would mark borders and mark territory from the Park Service to separate it from private lands, right?
We would check
a little bit about that.
We would check the boundaries, and the park's got concrete monuments, just like I said, a GIS marker. And they're established all along the park, and all we do is go from one monument to the next in straight line and get the boundary relatively close. As soon as I found out about Brian's situation, I called him, or he called me, I don't know, one way or the other. And I didn't like what I saw, because I know how vindictive that Park Service can be and just how nasty they can be. I give him the information of the encroachments in the park. There's encroachments all over this park, from Cosby all the way to Shagbark. There's encroachments everywhere. When we would mark the boundary, we would report those encroachments, and of course, it took time to go to court, make a case. So basically, he just said, "Nah, we don't want to spend the money and the time on it," and just left it. We know where it's at. It's not right.
When you say encroachments, you mean that private property has encroached upon National Park Service?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And what you just said was that you know that, and you found many of these yourself,
Exactly.
and you know that there are many of these encroachments that still exist today that the National Park Service has never taken action on.
Exactly.
That establishes a precedent, correct?
Sure does.
Right.
Sure does. If you go 2 houses beyond that, on the other corner, around the corner, there's a house there. They built a house now, but prior to that, there's a well drilled in the park that services that house. There's a well drilled. That's an encroachment. The well's still there. That house that I found is still there. There's several places that I still know of. Been a long time, but yeah, they.
So your take, I think it'd be safe to assume that your take is, being that they've made these allocations for other being that they've made these allocations for other landowners, it's kind of crazy that Brian is facing the sort of situation that he is.
Exactly. And in knowing the history of the Fox and Parrot, and knowing the history of that Park Service, every one of these superintendents, chief rangers, assistant superintendents, all the headquarters bunch, was driving up and down that road for years. They're using that road. Nobody said a word about it because they want to get their little tidy over at Fox and Parrot. So that's okay. And then all of a sudden, Cash comes by because he's challenged and says, "Oh, we're going to put a stop to it." Well, the doctrine of precedence is pretty clear to me. That's lawyer stuff
Right.
that should be investigated by Brian. But they've allowed this. And once Brian told me what was going on, I went back, refreshed myself on the boundaries. If you go right below Brian's place there, Ogle Hill Drive, at the next road.
Yep.
If you go on there,
Cuts off to the left, like back up the hill there.
well, if you're going that way, it goes back to the left. Well, that Ogle Hill Drive crosses the Foothills Parkway. Now the question to me is, knowing how the Park Service is supposed to work, they're not supposed to give easements across the Park Service boundary. How did they get that easement? Maybe somebody got it legally, but in my opinion, they encroached on that parkway because nobody checked it, and they built a road up there, and they built a subdivision that dead ends up there. All that connected across the Foothills Parkway. If you go in that parkway, the first house on the left, if you go in there, it appears on the map that to access that house, you have to cross into the Foothills Parkway to access that.
Same exact situation as Fox and Parrot.
Exactly. My question, I told Brian, is how they get easement across there? Somebody needs to check that easement to see if the Park Service allowed them to build a road across there.
Because then now we're talking about not just a situation where, okay, there's one house and they made this one situation for this one house, right? Now we're talking about not only did there's a subdivision of short-term rentals, some of which is on parkland, and there's also an actual road that crosses that easement as well. So,
Well, there's at least two of them in my mind that I know of.
if people are watching and they want to get involved, or they want to say, try to help in the cause, right? What would you suggest individuals do?
Just the support, physical support. I don't really need financial support. There's nothing really to put money towards. But in terms of maybe calling the representatives, calling the paper, calling the TV stations.
So right now we're sitting in your other restaurant.
We started another pub. My wife had a piece of property about a mile from the Fox and Parrot, and we started another little pub called the Rampant Lion. The reason for that is because of where the Fox and Parrot is situated is physically outside the city limits of Gatlinburg by about 200 feet. And if you're outside the city limits, you can't get wine or liquor to serve. And the Rampant Lion is inside the city limits, so we have wine and liquor as well as beer here.
So, we talk about, just a minute ago, we talked about supporting, this is still open.
This is open. The Rampant Lion is open. We're right now operating 4 days a week, Wednesday through Saturday. March 1st, we generally go back to 7 days a week to facilitate the visitors that come to the area. We've got
start to hit the unofficial peak season right around spring break.
Spring break starts February 22nd. Yeah, so and it'll run through the week after Easter.
Right.
So, but again, our biggest time of the year is October for fall color, or the week of St. Patrick's, because we're the only ones that do anything. The Fox and Parrot Tavern has always operated as a pub, which in England is short for public house. So it's not a bar. It's not a restaurant. It's kind of a hybrid. We've never had any altercations. We've never had a police call. It's not that kind of a place. It's a homey, sit down, relax, have a bite to eat and something to drink. Bring your kids, bring your dog, and in a beautiful setting.
Would you say that's the same kind of setting you have here at the
Absolutely. Yep.
Right.
Same thing.
Well, Brian, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you.